The story I'm going to tell you makes your blood run cold. I was 10 years old, and it was the first time I stayed home alone. I was very excited because in the past my parents didn't want to leave me alone, so they always called my grandmother to look after me. It was 7 in the evening when the parents went to dinner. Before they left, they told me to lock the door and not open it for anyone but them. When they left the house, I locked the door behind them and immediately ran to my room to play games. I played games, drank juice, and ate crackers, and was so happy. But that soon changed. After several hours of playing, I paused the game and went to the kitchen to pour more juice. As I was taking the juice out of the fridge, the doorbell rang. I was a little scared because my parents told me that they wouldn't be back until 10. I went to the door and asked, "Who is it?" "I'm your grandmother," was the answer. I didn't know what to do. I was so scared. I knew it wasn't her the moment the person on the other end spoke. My grandmother had a gentle and soft voice, while this one was gloomy and somehow through the teeth. I went to the kitchen and took a chair to climb up to peek through the peephole. When I looked through the peephole and saw the person standing in front of my front door, I almost fell off my chair in fear. A tall man with long black hair and a pale face was standing at the door. He was holding a broken beer bottle in one hand and a full garbage bag in the other. The most passionate part of his appearance was his eyes. They were black, and I had the feeling that they were looking right at me. I sucked from the chair and moved away from the door. "Can I come in?" said the man, imitating the voice of the old woman. "You are not my grandmother," I said. He laughed out loud. "You're a smart little boy, aren't you? Why don't you let me in and play?" I was terrified. I screamed, "Go away." Then he started banging on the door. He was laughing, shouting, and hitting the door harder and harder. I ran to my room and called my parents. They told me that they had called the police and that I should lock myself in the room and not come out until they came back. I don't know how long I sat in my room crying. At one point I heard police sirens. I looked out the window and saw the police cars and my parents. I ran out of the room and ran into my parents' arms. When the police arrived, there was no one at the front door. The only thing left outside the door was a beer bottle. It was a warm summer evening, and I was home alone for the first time. My parents had gone out for dinner, and I was excited to have the house to myself. I made popcorn, settled onto the couch, and turned on a movie. Everything felt cozy and safe. About an hour in, I heard a noise from the back of the house. It was subtle at first, just a faint thud. I dismissed it as the house settling, or maybe the wind. But as the movie played on, the sound returned, this time louder and more distinct. I felt a chill run down my spine. "Get a grip," I muttered to myself. I was 15 and not a child anymore. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I paused the movie and listened intently. Silence followed, and I began to relax. Then I heard it again. My heart raced. I grabbed my phone and quietly stood up, creeping toward the noise. It was coming from the back door, which I always kept locked. I slowly approached the door, and that's when I saw it. The handle was jiggling. Panic surged through me. I backed away, my heart pounding in my chest. I considered calling my parents, but I didn't want to freak them out. Instead, I texted a friend asking if they could come over. Then I heard heavy footsteps coming from the kitchen. My stomach dropped. I quickly ducked behind the couch, my phone clutched tightly in my hand. The footsteps grew closer, and I strained to hear anything else. I could feel my heart racing, every beat echoing in my ears. Whoever it was didn't seem to be trying to hide their presence. They moved around the kitchen, opening and closing cabinets, rummaging through drawers. I fought the urge to call out, knowing it would only give away my location. My mind raced with scenarios. Should I escape out the front door, hide in the bathroom? Suddenly, the footsteps stopped. The kitchen fell silent. I waited, breath held, hoping it was just my imagination. But then I heard it, a soft creak of the floorboards, moving closer to the living room. In a panic, I dialed 911, my fingers shaking. As the operator answered, I whispered, "There's someone in my house. I'm home alone." I could barely get the words out, my voice trembling. "Stay calm. Where are you?" she asked. I could hear the muffled sound of movement nearby, and I pressed my back against the couch, praying they wouldn't see me. "I'm hiding behind the couch. Keep the line open. Police are on the way. Do you know where the intruder is?" I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "They're in the living room now." Just then, the intruder stepped into view, a tall figure with a hood pulled low over their face. My breath hitched in my throat. They scanned the room, pausing briefly as if sensing something was off. I held my breath, praying they wouldn't look my way. "Are you still there?" the operator asked softly. "Yes," I whispered, glancing at the front door. It felt like a lifetime waiting for help to arrive. The intruder moved around the room, still rifling through my things, their movements erratic and frantic. "Stay quiet," the operator urged. "Help is on the way. Just keep listening." After what felt like an eternity, I heard the distant sound of sirens approaching. I could see the intruder tense up, eyes darting toward the window. In that moment, they turned and bolted out the back door, disappearing into the darkness just as the police arrived. When the officers entered, I felt a rush of relief. They quickly secured the house, checking every room. I emerged from my hiding spot, tears streaming down my face as I recounted what had happened. They assured me I was safe now, but the fear lingered long after they left. I couldn't shake the feeling of vulnerability, knowing someone had invaded my space, my sanctuary. From that day forward, I never took being home alone lightly again. The intruder was never caught, and I was left with a haunting reminder that safety can be a fragile illusion. It was one of those rainy afternoons where the world outside felt distant and muted. My parents had left me home alone, promising to be back before dinner. At 16, I relished the rare chance to enjoy some peace, so I settled into my favorite spot on the couch with a book and a steaming mug of hot chocolate. The sound of raindrops tapping against the window created a cozy atmosphere, and I soon lost myself in the story. Time slipped away until a sudden crash jolted me from my concentration. I jumped, my heart racing. Was that glass breaking? I set my mug down, straining to listen. A few moments passed, and all I could hear was the rain and the distant rumble of thunder. Maybe it was just a tree branch hitting the house, I thought, trying to calm myself. But the unease lingered. I decided to investigate, slowly making my way toward the back of the house where the noise had seemed to come from. My mind raced with scenarios, each more terrifying than the last. I reached the kitchen, and as I stepped into the hallway, I noticed the window above the sink was shattered, shards of glass scattered across the counter and floor. Panic surged through me. I took a step back, my breath quickening. What if someone had broken in? I asked myself. My instincts told me to call 911, but I felt frozen, a million thoughts colliding in my head. I couldn't just stand there. I needed to know what had happened. I cautiously moved closer to the broken window, peering outside into the dreary afternoon. The rain poured down, washing away the remnants of whatever had caused the damage, but there was no sign of an intruder. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling of vulnerability. Just then, I heard a soft rustling sound coming from the living room. My heart sank. I took a deep breath and quietly crept back toward the living room, my heart pounding in my chest. As I rounded the corner, I froze. There, on the floor, lay a large branch, clearly the culprit behind the broken window. But before I could breathe a sigh of relief, I heard another noise. It was a low creak, as if someone was stepping on the floorboards. I glanced toward the front door, half expecting to see someone standing there, but it remained shut. I grabbed my phone and texted my parents, letting them know about the broken window and asking if they were on their way home. I didn't want to wait around, so I decided to gather my things and go outside to inspect the damage. Maybe I could clear the glass and make it safe until they got back. As I stepped outside, the rain hit me like a cold wave. I walked to the window, trying to avoid stepping on any sharp pieces. That's when I heard it again. A faint noise, almost like footsteps on the gravel path beside the house. My heart raced. Was someone out there? I turned slowly, scanning the yard, but saw no one, just the rain-soaked ground and the dense trees surrounding our property. I felt exposed, my heart pounding in my ears. I quickly returned inside, locking the door behind me and shutting the curtains tight. Sitting back on the couch, I felt a mixture of fear and frustration. I was supposed to enjoy my time alone, but now my mind was racing. I kept replaying the sounds in my head, every creak and rustle feeling amplified. I jumped at every little noise, convincing myself I was being watched. Finally, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my mom. "We're on our way. Is everything okay?" I quickly replied, explaining about the window, but assuring her I was fine. After what felt like an eternity, I heard the familiar sound of our car pulling into the driveway. Relief washed over me, and I rushed to open the door. My parents hurried inside, their faces etched with concern. "What happened?" my dad asked, glancing around. I pointed toward the kitchen. The window broke. I thought someone was trying to get in. My mom inspected the damage, shaking her head. "It must have been that branch. We need to get it fixed." As they began to clean up the mess, I felt a sense of safety return. But even as they comforted me, I knew I wouldn't forget the fear of being home alone that day. The sense of vulnerability lingered, a reminder of how quickly things can change from peaceful to terrifying.